I'm Dana Russell with Kokopelli Real Estate and Property Management, and this is the Kokopelli Connection, where we discuss the history, happenings, and lifestyle of Western Colorado. On this episode of the Kokopelli Connection, Cody Kennedy joined us again for a second episode. Since then, Cody has won his bid for re-election and was appointed by the new City Council as Mayor of Grand Junction. Cody discusses what the new Grand Junction City Council has been working on, including the status of 4th and 5th Street, the closing of the Resource Center on Ute, and he addressed the budget overage of the new Recreation Center. We also talked about the upcoming housing development in the city and Council's new focus on improving home affordability here in the Grand Valley. Let's jump in. Cody, thanks for being here again. We appreciate you coming back a second time.
Glad to be here.
Apparently the first time wasn't too bad, huh?
Not too bad. Thanks for the invitation.
Yes. So tell us, last time we spoke, you were running for City Council. Give us an update.
So, won my bid for re-election. I had previously spent 2 years of a 4-year term. The reason it was only 2 years is because Rick Taggart, who had been in my seat previously, was elected as a state representative. So I ran for his seat, won that, and then I just ran for re-election and was elected to a 4-year term.
Yes.
So, and of course, through that process, I became mayor as well.
Mm-hmm. So how does that work? Explain to me how you go from running city council, winning that seat, and then now you're the mayor.
Right. So each year, council selects who will serve as president of the board. So Grand Junction does not have an elected mayor. The council just chooses somebody to represent them as mayor. And that mayor doesn't generally have any additional authority or power, sign a lot of documents, plat maps, that type of thing on behalf of the city. But in general, I run the meetings, right? And so I have one vote, like everybody else on council. And I am given the opportunity and really the privilege to represent the city at a lot of events. And that's what I'm doing now.
So is that fairly common to not have an elected mayor?
Yes. Okay. So we have council city manager form of government. Mm-hmm. There are several places that have elected mayors that are even as close as Fruita, right? So Fruita's mayor is elected, and generally in Fruita, the way their system works is they elect a mayor for a 2-year term, and the mayor won't vote unless they need a tiebreaker.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Which is a great system,
yeah.
Right? I think our system works well. I've certainly had the conversation with people about whether we want to go to an elected mayor or even a strong mayor type scenario, which there's a lot to that. There's a lot of moving parts in that conversation. That's a whole other conversation we could have. but really, for your listeners to understand that the mayor of Grand Junction is technically the president of the board and is selected each year, mayor and mayor pro tem, by the seated council members. Mm-hmm.
And Laurel is currently mayor pro tem,
yes.
Correct?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So explain to me what that means. What does mayor pro tem mean?
So mayor pro tem is generally going to be the person that fills in when the mayor's unavailable.
Okay.
She's kind of that vice chair position.
Mm-hmm.
Again, not a bunch of additional authority beyond what any other council member has. But really for me, having somebody that's kind of a thought partner, somebody that I include in a lot of conversations, I'll just CC her on a lot of emails. If I'm going to have a meeting, I'll generally reach out to her and see if she's available for that as well. She does have a lot of commitments. She is the director of Habitat for Humanity, mm-hmm. So she certainly has a lot on her plate, including running the Habitat Restore and all those things. But it's really nice to have somebody to come alongside that knows the context of the other things that are happening within the city. So if we're having those conversations together with the city manager or city attorney, it makes sense just for us to kind of know what the other knows. And then if I'm unavailable for whatever reason, she can really pick up and move forward with that.
What is the difference between the city mayor and the city manager?
Oh, big difference. Okay. So city mayor is an elected position. Well, city council is all elected. And of course, as I just explained, mayor is selected from one of the 7 council members. City manager is hired by council. So council has 3 employees: the city manager, city attorney, and city judge. So those are the basically the only people that are the council's direct reports. When I say council's direct reports, I just want to specify that I'm 1/7 the boss, right? That is, I can't independently give direction, right? So we as a body give direction to our city manager or city attorney or judge. But our interactions, I would say the majority of those are with the city manager. The city manager handles the operations for the city, and our city charter, which is kind of our governing document, prohibits city council from giving operational direction to staff. So I can't say, hey, I hit this pothole, streets crew, go fix that. Or I can't say, hey, I'm hearing there's a bunch of speeders in this neighborhood, police department, please go run radar in this neighborhood. Like, that is specifically prohibited. Now, if somebody sends me an email about that pothole or about those speeders, I can forward that on to the city manager and say, hey, Mike, would you take a look at this, right? And then he can, decide if that's, an appropriate use of city resources to deal with those issues. But it is a big job that Mike Bennett is doing, and he's doing a great job. I'm really thankful to have him. He's super knowledgeable, as you probably know. We were able to pull him away from Fruta. Yep. And I had known him as when he was city manager out there, and I was consistently impressed with him. Not just how much he knows and how professional he is, but the way he interacts with people. Like, he's an excellent listener. He's a great communicator. Like, he's a tremendous asset to our city.
Yeah, I've heard lots of good things about him.
Yeah.
So last time you were here, we talked about some very big political topics surrounding the election. So let's just do a quick update on those.
Right.
4th and 5th Street. Let's start with that one. Yeah. There's been rumor, at least, that they are going back to normal, not fully, if I'm understanding it correctly. Can you tell us where we're at with that?
Yes. So currently, as recent as just in the last few days, our downtown is being returned to its previous state. The progression of that had been difficult. When the new council was seated, it was already on the agenda, literally in our first meeting.
Yeah.
We're talking about 4th and 5th.
Yep.
And then it gets, it was kind of being pushed on us to try another, pilot project phase, which none of the new council were in favor of. And we were trying to figure out, okay, is there a way to find some compromise here? And really, we just, in all the feedback we got and talking to businesses downtown and first responders, it needed a return. So we flipped it right in that first meeting, in that first week. That was tough. We got a lot of pushback from the neighbors north of Grand, right? And one of the things that struck me is that all of the doors I was knocking, a lot of the doors I was knocking, people I was talking to during the election were angry because they weren't being listened to, right? They felt that the previous council wasn't taking their concerns into consideration. It's like, well, we're just making fact-based decisions, right? And of course, you can make your facts say what you want them to say.
Yeah.
So, we were really concerned about that. But what I wanted to do was to make sure we were listening to everybody, not just the people that we would say, we know for sure this person voted for us, so we're going to listen to them. Yeah. It was really listening to everybody, the whole community. And we put the time in. So we put the work in, and what we ended up doing was finding a compromise to bifurcate 4th and 5th Street at Grand. So north of Grand, where it's mostly residential, we had it returned we left it at the one lane with the bike lane to try and slow traffic down along the park, Hawthorne Park, where there's a playground, and through that neighborhood. Yeah. Right? And then really return the streets in downtown Grand Junction to their previous state with some changes for some slowing traffic, basically side delineations for lanes, which were not there before. So we're going to have like 11-foot lanes, so that tends to make cars move a little bit slower. Those were some of the compromises we made along the way, and I know that there were a lot of people that really supported me that were very frustrated with that. Like, we wanted you to flip that thing and really show that, but for me it was about saying, hey, really do want to listen, right? And whoever you voted for, we want to hear what you have to say about this. So that's where we went with that.
Good.
Yeah.
And that, I'm sorry, you said that's already happening.
It's
the changes
happening right now.
Okay.
Right. So Fourth Street, I think, is mostly complete as of today. In returning, there's still some paint to be done on those streets, but the bollards have been taken down. And then Fifth Street will be starting up right away, probably within the next day or so.
Gotcha.
So I just talked to the assistant city manager about that earlier today.
Okay. The elections, those were voted on to be changed to all of them in November, correct?
Correct.
And that went through.
Yes.
So that does not happen school board is this November, right?
Correct.
And then next year, everything will be together next November.
Right.
Okay.
So city elections are in odd years.
Oh,
Easy way to remember that, right?
Yep.
So during our next election will be in November. So basically, the three that are on council now who have expiring terms in the next election, they'll end up with, I think, an extra 6 months.
Okay.
Right? Because of when the election was moved to.
Gotcha. Okay. Can you give us a quick update on the rec center? How's that coming along?
Well, it's really an amazing place. If you haven't had a chance to tour it there, I would take an opportunity to see it. We had a topping ceremony here it's been probably a month ago. That was where we put the beam in place. That was the highest beam for the whole facility. That beam had a lot of signatures on it from people who had been involved in the process and whatnot. My signature's on there, and it's progressing. It's on time. It is really coming forward. It's going to be a great community amenity. I am very worried about traffic up around 29 Road, Patterson, F and a quarter, all through there. I know that there's going to be some significant bottlenecks. There's going to be some challenges to those neighborhoods surrounding that area.
Patterson's already so busy.
It is. Mm-hmm. It is. So thinking about that a lot already. Okay. And how do we route traffic, and what do we do with that? So how do we get pedestrians safely across Patterson?
Yeah.
Right? How is somebody on a bike going to cross that roadway? What is that going to look like? So those are significant safety concerns, because we're going to have a lot of people that want to utilize that rec center, and people of all ages, right? So, but we have young people that aren't driving, right? How are they getting there? Right? So that's a serious concern. So we're gonna pay some close attention to that as we move forward and say, how can we facilitate that?
Just in talking with some of the people that I know, asking them how they feel about the rec center, or listening to the presenter, I think who was either the Economic Summit or Gijara, I cannot remember where I listened to him, talk about the cost of the rec center. It seems like those that are for it, they are definitely for it, and those that aren't really are not. And I think some of the ones that are not are very frustrated by what was passed, and they feel like it's very over budget. More pools have been added, swimming pools have been added. Right. So can you explain that a little bit? Is it truly over budget? Is it where it's supposed to be?
So it's hard to communicate that to people, and I appreciate this opportunity to actually talk about this, because what we do when we go out when we go to the community for a bond issue like the community rec center, it's like, hey, can we take this mortgage out, right? And basically that community, voting for it is that cosigner on your mortgage. Yeah. Right? We talk real estate, right? So this is my wheelhouse, your wheelhouse is real estate. So it's really that approval for the debt. Okay. Right? So we received that, right? I think for the initial, I think it was a $90 million approval on that bond. It was 80 or 90. The additional funds that we received to add some additional pools and that type of thing. And again, that was in my role with the previous council, not this council. When I say this council, since the last election. So it was predated the last election. But the decision was made to utilize some funds that we received from bond premiums, right? From selling those bonds that allowed us to take on the debt for the community rec center allowed us to add to, like, do we want to utilize that for paying down the debt? Which you and I both know, like, hey, that might make sense, right? To pay down debt. But sometimes it also makes sense to take advantage of, of equity, right? And invest it in another way, right? Maybe you add that extra bedroom on that house, right? That you're going to rent out. So that for us was an opportunity to increase capacity. And it made sense from when listening to the Parks and Rec director as they presented it to us. There was also some additional money we received from Intermountain, from St. Mary's in that role. That eventually went to RFP, request for proposal to the community. So that was a part of that process was additional money that the city received for naming rights and utilizing a portion of the community rec center for therapeutic uses. So yes, that is kind of the answer to that. I know it's a little bit long-winded. It's hard to boil that down other than to say, yes, we were approved for a certain amount of debt. There were some additional funding mechanisms that came in that we utilized those to expand some of the services of what we're offering in the community rec center.
I think some people just feel like it's the city's doing whatever they want. Yeah. They're just,
It feels like that sometimes. Yeah. And there are times that the city can do that. We are, just as our country isn't a true democracy, right? We're a republic, right? We're a representative form of government. We cannot vote on every single thing. Right. You elected a council because you need representatives to represent you to make choices, right? And that's ultimately what council does, is we make choices along those lines. We can't just farm it out. As much as we try to listen to people, a lot of times you end up hearing let's say in a council meeting, even if we have 2 hours worth of 3-minute, commentaries, we need to keep in mind that if there's, 100 people that came to talk to us tonight, yes, their opinions are important. We also represent 70,000 people within our community, right? And not everybody wants to come to a city council meeting, right? And when I spend time, in the case of 4th and 5th, walking downtown in and out of businesses, talking to store owners, customers, employees, going into the post office, spending time in there, talking to postal employees, talking to customers, like, I get a pretty good feeling for where people are at because I put the work in. Right. So and even then, am I really talking to 70,000 people? Maybe I talk to 500, but you try to be representative. Right. Yeah. Yep. You're there to represent the greater good. Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. And really, as we elected, any person that's elected, certainly they have their ideas and kind of where they're at, but ultimately, you really want to make sure that you're reflecting the will of the people, right, to the best of your ability. Yeah. And like I say, it's not every decision can be voted on by everybody. Like there's no efficiency there. No. So council needs to make choices, and we have a significant budget that we need to, in a normal year, like a year that we aren't doing big capital projects like the community rec center or the Persico wastewater treatment plant. Bare minimum, we're at $250 million plus every year. So a council member will oversee $1 billion during their of taxpayer money during their time in office. So that's a huge public trust that weighs heavily upon us. We need to take that seriously. The rec center has been a long time in the making. It's been voted down before. What do you think was the give this time? I think that part of it was having a very well-organized campaign around it. And there's a lot to be learned from that, right? So it's really about making sure you're out talking to people, right? And encouraging people to vote, right? In the last election, I think we had around 16,000 people vote, right? In a city of 70,000, where we have 45,000 registered voters. I mean, I would hope for better turnout. Right? Yeah. And that, to me, voter turnout is so important. And like, whatever way you vote. Yep. If we could double those numbers, triple those numbers, I'd love to see that. Like, voter participation is important. So you really know that you're representing the community. Yeah. So. Okay. Yeah. The day center, that's been removed. Or I'm sorry, is it the resource center? Okay. Yeah, resource center. The resource center, that's been removed, correct? Correct.
It's not been relocated, just removed.
Yeah, exactly.
What was the decision behind that?
So there had been a significant negative impact on our downtown.
Oh, okay.
Like it was, we were hearing consistently from businesses that it was rough. It was drawing a lot of people to our downtown corridors, to utilize the services from the resource center. And as I've, been famously criticized for, I mean, there was a lot of drug use. There was lawlessness. We were dealing with some significant issues, and not everybody. It's like anything else. I mean, a few can certainly spoil it for everyone. But it was, and it did provide a lot of services. But we decided that it was time to close it down. It really wasn't working in the location that it was at. That was a unfortunate choice for where that ended up. Right between Ute and Pitkin. Yep. It's very, very, people are really seeing it. It's in close proximity to a lot of downtown businesses. We were hearing from especially our hotels down that end of Main Street, where they had people that were, there was conflict with unhoused folks that were coming into the lobbies and interacting with their clients. They were interacting with people getting off the train. There was a lot of friction there. Okay. So, so we've kind of taken a bit of a different direction now with our current council. So
what happened to the resource center?
So
because that could be mobile, correct?
Right. Well, big white tent.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Basically, the city bought it, and it became the property of Homeward Bound.
Okay.
So that was part of the deal as they put that together.
Okay.
So what they're going to do with it, I don't know. I believe they're going to resell it. And they would keep those funds. That's just part of that process.
Did the city donate it to Homeward Bound, or did the city sell it to Homeward Bound?
No, Homeward Bound took that. Homeward Bound hasn't paid for anything. They received that tent as just one more thing that they got in addition to all the funds that they received from the city.
Gotcha. Okay. Have you seen, since it has been removed, have you seen crime decrease? Has it stayed the same? Has it gone up?
It's hard for me to rattle off crime statistics sitting here. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from downtown businesses, and I think that's telling. When you're talking about employees that just don't feel safe going to their cars at night, when there's people that are literally lighting fires on the sidewalk outside of your business, right? So there are, I talked to employees especially in the downtown along Colorado Avenue, that had people that were basically sleeping under their cars, right? When they went out to get in their car, like all of a sudden somebody's crawling out from underneath their car.
Well, that's a little bit scary.
It is scary. And parking downtown is certainly an issue, but what's the proximity to, a business, employee of the Rock Slide? How far do they have to walk to get to their car? And, with all the utility work that's been done with construction or reconstruction or deconstruction of First Street at Ute and Pitkin, there's been a lot of not traffic lights, but street lights out, right? So you have a bunch of dark areas downtown, and our downtown has been through it. Between that, 4th and 5th, Resource Center, 4th and 5th, what's happened with all the construction, CDOT construction on First Street, it's been a rough couple years for our downtown. And that is, that's hard to see. I'm really thankful for our downtown. I like a lot of us. I just love our downtown. I identify Grand Junction with our downtown, and I'm an advocate for our downtown. I want to see them succeed, and I want to see this thriving and vibrant downtown. So I'm willing to fight for them.
So with everything that's been going on for downtown, making it rough for them, has there been a lot of businesses that have left and a lot of people that aren't going down there anymore? Have you noticed that?
I've heard that quite a bit. I've heard consistently people saying, I'm not going back downtown. A lot of it about the 4th and 5th Street configuration and the much underused bike lanes. I mean, we certainly have businesses down there. Rock Slide's one of them that has a camera like literally pointed at the bike lanes, right? So we know that what the usage of those lanes are. And, we hear people talking about not being down there. I talked to a business owner in our downtown corridor, somebody that they're a popular draw, right? That was, literally looking at buying their building. And they told me there was no way between the Resource Center and 4th and 5th Street when all that was happening. They said, I was going to buy this building, not now. And I'm looking at other locations to get out of the downtown because of those things. So that really hits home. Like that is, especially when it's one of those kind of household names that everybody identifies with and comes to downtown to see them. So that to me really speaks to that. So I'm glad that we're moving back to its original configuration. We need we certainly need to have those conversations about safe multimodal infrastructure, but trying to do it where it makes sense.
Yep. The economic state of the city. Let's talk about that.
Right.
So, as you know, the state itself, the state of Colorado, has a huge deficit right now.
We do.
2026 might be a little rough for the state.
Right.
What does the city of Grand Junction look like in the future here, upcoming the rest of this year, 2026? Right. How's the city holding up?
The city is holding up. We have had, we actually just had a revenue report that was pretty strong. However, we are seeing some decreases, and really the conversations that we're having at the city level is what can we cut, right? And some of the expenses that we've been incurring are a little bit self-imposed by some policies. The way we're building streets we have a complete streets policy. For instance, if you look at the Four Canyons Parkway, right? That's I think we were at 18 million for a half-mile roadway.
Oh, wow.
Right? But go look at it, right? What is it, right? It's some really wide bike lanes, some really wide sidewalks, and not to say that we don't need bike lanes and sidewalks, but it's a matter of saying, like, what can we afford? How do we live within our means, right?
That parkway is so wide. I have seen a number of people making left-hand turns that turn going up or down the wrong way.
I've seen that well, right?
It's
exactly.
So wide.
They turn short because they think, oh, this is about where I should turn.
Yeah.
And they end up on the wrong side of the road because it is so wide.
Yeah.
Right? And it was just one of those, I think it's a great example of saying, how can the city do better? Like, how can we adjust policy and right-size policy, not to ignore multimodal, but to say, this is an example of where we don't need to go as we look forward into 2026, because we're just starting to work on our budgets now, and we start talking about tightening budgets and where can we cut, those transportation dollars are going to need to go farther, right? So one of the things that we often talk about is a pavement index, right? So what are the conditions of our roads? And you need to maintain your roads at a certain level. If that pavement index falls below a certain level, now we're talking about replacing roads, which gets very, very expensive. So much like the state, in my opinion, I told somebody from the governor's office last week that I thought the state was doing a terrible job with transportation dollars. I said, please tell the governor, who I was sitting next to yesterday, but it's really a lot of the money that should be going to maintain our infrastructure, specifically our roads and our bridges, has gone to these big multimodal projects, right? And EV, electrification, all that. So it's a matter of saying, I'm not against safe multimodal transportation. I'm not against something that wants to use an EV. If that's what they want to do, great. But it's the government dollars, right? Those tax dollars subsidizing that, and to say, where's the equity in that, right? And is that the best choice for the state moving forward? Especially at a time, like as you mentioned, where we're looking at enormous budget deficits. It's time to be treating it like you would your household budget, right? Where do we make some common sense adjustments to that?
Yep. So with Four Canyons Parkway, was that, just to get some perspective on that, was that created so wide to plan for the future, or was that just because they could do it?
I wouldn't say it's just because they could do it. I think it really falls in line with some of the transportation documents that we're using now. We had previously been using guidelines that are AASHTO, right? AASHTO is basically it's transportation engineering. They're design standards that are utilized across the country. We moved a couple of years ago, and I was on council. I didn't know that it had happened, but we moved to NACTO, and NACTO is very multimodal focused. And if you look them up, they're an advocacy group, right? Rather than a nationally recognized engineering, transportation engineering design standard. So making changes from things along those types of lines are important, I think, to get us back to just kind of get our feet back on the ground and make decisions in a time when we can't afford those $18 million per half mile roads.
Yeah.
Right? So
kind of makes puts the $1 million highway to shame a little bit.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Although, can you imagine building that $1 million highway back then?
Yeah.
How is the city looking on sales tax? Have you seen an increase, decrease in sales tax?
So down a little bit. Actually, there's a great report. Business Times just did a really thorough report on that. And I'm not going to try to rattle off those numbers all off the top of my head, but I thought they had an excellent breakdown. I'd encourage anybody listening to this to look them up. Because it gave the overall situation for our tax revenues, but really also did an excellent job of explaining the source of our revenue and how and what drives that. So I'm not going to do a deep dive into that here, but to answer your question is we're really concerned about this year ahead. And I don't mean like catastrophic, oh no, what are we going to do? It's just, it's a bit of a flattening trend where we had budgeted for a 2 to 3% increase, and we'd seen big increases in previous years. It's just kind of that ebb and flow of the economy. So now it's a matter of saying, what is it going to look like going forward, and where can we tighten our belt? Like, where can we save money? And those are conversations we're having right now.
What can people expect from the city? Is there anything, new improvements? Is there new programs that you have coming out? What does the city have to offer that's new?
So there's always conversations about ongoing economic development. I sit on the Grand Junction Economic Partnership Board. There are exciting things happening there. There's things that we can't talk about as far as if they're ongoing negotiations and that type of thing. But we're always working on economic development. And that is, I think there's going to be some great things happening in the near future. And then as far as other things for Grand Junction, I think we're coming into a time when I think with some of the direction of the new council, we're really kind of a back to basics, right? How do we maintain our infrastructure? How do we invest in public safety? How do we make sure that our citizens feel safe? How do we it's that type of feel, right? So I'm excited about that. We do have a lot of we have some growth happening in the way of we have what's called a MRF. I don't know if you've heard about that, but it's a materials recovery facility that's coming online. The city just received over a $9 million grant just within the last few days to go towards that. It's the biggest grant the city's received in one shot. So that's significant. I can also tell you that the airport is really doing some amazing things. I sit on the Grand Junction Regional Airport Commission, so I'm an airport commissioner. So seeing the amount of federal dollars that they've been able to obtain as they build the new runway, right, $200 million project there, and we've started on the new parking lot. So the parking lot's totally changing. We're adding some solar shaded parking, just some to start, maybe just a couple of strips across the front, kind of through the middle. But that whole thing came about through a conversation at one of my morning coffee with Cody conversations downtown at Mountain Air Roasted Coffee, where I meet with people. Representative from Alasta Solar was in there, Isaac, and we were talking about solar, and I was telling him what I was doing at the airport, and we got to talking about that. One thing led to another, and I got him plugged into the board and into our executive director up there, Angela Padalecki, and her staff, and it came about. So it's exciting to see those things happening. And terminal transformation, one of the things that I've really made a point of talking about consistently on the board is to maintain the feel of our airport and how easy it is to use, how easy it is to get in and out of, right? Yeah. So my hope is that we continue to attract new flights, and those, especially the inexpensive carriers, if we can get that inexpensive flight to Denver, if we get better connections to some other hubs, that will eventually, I'd love to see what we call leakage, right? Leakage from Montrose coming to Grand Junction rather than the other way around, right? Yep. I'd love to see people from Montrose saying, wow, I fly out of Grand Junction because it's a better experience and it's less expensive.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what, I mean, it's all these things, right? So it's so many layers. Like what's coming to Grand Junction? I think we are in such a great space, right? We are such an attractive place to live, right? There's new subdivisions coming. There's people that are coming to the city looking to build apartment complexes. And I know some of your listeners might not be thrilled with the growth, but you got to face it. This is a great place to live. It's a very desirable community. Yes. And if you lived in the Front Range and you knew anything about the Western Slope, it'd be like, how fast can I get there? Right? So,
well, sometimes I would definitely be okay if they didn't clear up some of those rock slides in Glenwood Canyon.
Right, yeah, exactly.
You want to get here, you got to make that effort.
I get it, right? And it's like, how do we balance that? Yes. How do we balance, being a part of a growing community and maintaining our identity? Yeah. Right? And then, of course, the cost of housing plays into that, and that's a consistent challenge.
So getting on the housing topic, let's talk about the Housing Affordability Task Force. Tell us about that.
Yes, I am so thrilled with this. So this came about through a series of conversations with really builders and developers, HBA and some other local groups that really were kind of expressing some frustrations and not being heard. Some of these folks put in a lot of time on committees and were expressing to council that they felt like they put in all this time and then staff would kind of just take portions of what they brought forward and not all of it, right? The council wouldn't get all of it.
Yeah.
So when we brought about this Housing Affordability Task Force, it was really about saying, we want this to be industry-led and staff supported, right? So staff isn't leading this. The building community is in this case, and not just building community. I mean, we have Emily Powell, who's director of Western Colorado Housing Resources, or Housing Resources of Western Colorado. Laurel Cole, who is also the director of Habitat, and a council member, is on it, as well as myself and Jason Wynn. So we're at every meeting, listening and trying to give what feedback they need from us, but mostly just there to listen. Yeah. But then we have builders, developers, planners, that are people from our planning commission are on there. And it is just we've had one meeting so far, but I'm really, really excited about it because what we're looking at is to say, what efficiencies can we bring about? For instance, in planning, like what is it, are we having planning problems with our applications? Are we having problems with communication once we get feedback? So what we don't want is to have a subdivision that takes 2 years to get through our planning department, right? Yeah. Because that's real money, right? Yep. Somebody that's building that subdivision has borrowed money to buy the land. There's carrying costs. There's all these things, and of course, how do you keep your staff available? Your pros that are ready to go to build that house, right? The house is like you need to be moving. So how do we increase the efficiency there? And of course, we'll also talk about, our TEDS, which is our Transportation Engineering Design standards. We'll talk about a zoning development code. Like it's kind of all on the table. Like what can we do to improve these things?
Okay. Does this pertain to all housing across the board? Single family, multifamily, subdivisions, everything?
Yep, everything really. And I think there will even be some overlap into commercial, although that's not what this is about. Yeah. I think there's things that maybe get cleaned up in code that will be kind of a, collateral benefit. So I'm hopeful for that. But really it is about, they're actually people that are involved in the process that are, single family. There's also people that develop multifamily. Yep. There's people that are consultants that really just do planning. So there's really kind of have a great cross section of people involved in that.
Can you touch on a little bit on the developments that are going on in town, Redlands 360, sure. Some of the other new things that are coming online?
As you mentioned, Redlands 360 had lots of conversations with that, both before it before it started and ongoing with Jane Quimby out there.
Yep.
It is a significant development, right?
I
think eventually through all the phases, I think we're talking about 1,500 homes, but and some of those are small multis, a lot of them are single family, but really a well thought out designed neighborhood with parks and bike paths and trails and kind of interconnected with some of the other trails that naturally occur around that community. So yeah, it's a significant one. We've brought on several apartment complexes in recently, and people look. There's the Landings up by the airport, another one. The Slate, I think, just came online. Those two were both developed by the same developer that built the rail yard behind Walmart River Rock. And that's developers talked to us, just touched base with the city about maybe even looking at another property. So Grand Junction is just at that point for the people that develop multifamily to say, this makes a lot of sense. And what we're seeing is literally at the ribbon cutting of the junction, which is at the old City Market location downtown, 200 Rood, I think they were over 80% leased up on the day of the ribbon cutting, which is really unusual. If you know anything about multis, that is very, very unusual. And those are market price; those aren't subsidized units. So we have the terminal coming online, which is in the old Greyhound building. I think there's going to be another 100 plus units there.
That's across from
Whitman Park
Whitman.
and the police department. Right. So so that the old bus station will come down and that'll be built there. It'll be a multi-story facility there.
Is that going to be, if I remember correctly, I thought someone from downtown had mentioned how some of them are going to be specifically for artists.
There will be some maker space in that.
That's I think the term I was looking for.
Right. I don't know that the residents need to necessarily be that, but I think they have that kind of feel, right, for that downtown area. That's, I think, what some of the feedback I received from the DDA about that was. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see the way that unfolds. And I think some of those units will be subsidized, right? So hit target AMI numbers, whether that's I think maybe 60%. Some of the units will be at 60%. So yeah, and there's other developments going on. Orchard Mesa, we're looking at there's an apartment complex that we've been working with for some time now that will be it's affordable, right? It's subsidized. It's the Liberty Apartments is the name of that project. And interesting project. It is basically covered with solar, super efficient. The developer, I believe, is out of Florida, but the idea is to make that not only very affordable from the aspect of that monthly rent, but also the utility bill, which will be all included, right? So, so that's just another project where there's additional growth along Las Colonias, right? So the old Doug Jones sawmill, if anybody knows where and what that is, kind of the S curve, once you go past the Riverside Parkway, kind of by Bonsai in that area, on the left, if you're headed east, on the left hand side of the road, where that big brick building is.
Was that the Sugar Beet?
So that building, right, is not part of that, but it's just past that.
Okay.
Right? That building had been used to store sugar beets and whatnot over the years. So
that's a neat building. I've never been inside of it, but I like it from the outside.
Yeah, to me it has a ton of potential.
Yes.
Right? If you've ever been to Pueblo, they've done some really great work there. I'm trying to remember Ironworks or something that they have this beautiful brick building that's got a bunch of little restaurants in it, a bar in the middle, and some office space, and it has that feel. So I hope we're able to retain the historic aspect of that down there.
Yeah.
So I'm on the Las Colonias Development Board, so it's like all the how are we developing that whole riverfront, right? Which is exciting, and what's happening over Dos Rios, right below the Riverside neighborhood on the other side with the new Confluence Center. It's just opening up.
Can you give an update on that? And I always call the whole thing Las Colonias because I don't know where the break is. Can you kind of explain that?
Well, think of it as 5th Street, kind of dividing that, right? So as 5th Street goes over the Colorado River there, Highway 50, that really divides that. So
Okay.
Las Colonias being to the east, Dos Rios being to the west.
Okay.
And the development that's happening on both sides is significant and really a little separated, but I think the vision really comes together in activating that riverfront.
Yeah.
And it just being a fantastic place to live. So there will be more apartments and some nice residential, facilities on that Dos Rios side. I think that'll be coming in the near term. But the Confluence Center is an amazing project that supports. I think they have 5 nonprofits involved, and I would miss some, but Eureka and Rivers Edge West and I'm probably great, but they're all basically they're around education or our river systems.
Okay.
And there's going to be some early education there, and you've heard of STEAM. In this case, it'll be STREAM, right? Because you add rivers into STEAM. Yep. So it's really a cool project. So, and a great location down there. And of course, you got Starbucks down there already. So, so that's that side. And then as Las Colonias, expands, builds out, that tie-in with the riverfront trail system is important. I've had some really great conversations recently around 9th Street with CMU, talking with John Marshall, some of his people, about tying CMU via 9th Street into the riverfront trail system, right? And making it a multimodal access so that we can really easily move students across North Avenue safely and move them down. They'll basically go right through the center of Washington Park, assuming the school district agrees with that. Talked with them, some of them briefly about that. And then you move on south, and you're basically you're very close to Lincoln Park. As you move south, you're a couple blocks from Main Street. As you move further south, you're at Emerson Park, the skate park, right?
Yeah.
And then you just keep moving south, and you get to the Riverside Parkway. Of course, at some point we would need to add an intersection, right, at 9th Street and Riverside Parkway. But my hope would be that we would also do kind of a multimodal crossing there, to where it's basically all lanes stop, other than the pedestrian and bike traffic that are across the Riverside Parkway, so they can safely get across that road and down into Las Colonias, whether they're going to a concert or getting on the trail system or whatever. So, and a part of that too is really engaging CMU into our downtown. Yeah. Right? Whether those students are coming to shop or to eat at restaurants or to work or be part of our downtown in other ways, to enjoy our downtown. So to me, that's super exciting. How do we make that connection and really fold CMU into that process and really say, hey, you're part of our community. And they have been, not like they weren't before.
Right.
How do we make it even more so?
Yeah. Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about the strategic and comprehensive plan that the city has.
Great. 2 separate documents. Yep. Our strategic plan is something that we have worked on. I think we got to work on that in July, right? So these are really, what's the focus going to be for the strategic plan? And I'll tell you, a few years ago when I went through my first process, I didn't even totally get how important that strategic plan was in setting the tone for direction, right? So we were talking about back then, this, thriving, engaging, community, sustainability, and that type of thing. And really, the direction for this strategic plan is around core services, right? Public safety, our streets, utilities, parks and rec, right? So really doing a good job on those things that our community relies on their government to do. And then we beyond those core services, we're talking about our the city's role in housing. Like how can we encourage housing? And one of the things that we talked about at length was home ownership and how important that is to people. And you know that, right? Yeah. This is what you do, right? Yeah. And really the ability for people to financially succeed in life and how important that is, and what can we do to bring single-family homes online. So that was part of that conversation. And again, these documents aren't finalized; they still have to be brought forward and voted on by council. But so that was part of it, and it was really just a matter of saying, how are we going to deal? Some of what we talked about, like how are we going to deal with homelessness or unhoused in our community? Like, what's our focus? And for us, it was about improving lives, right? Rather than like the resource center that we talked about earlier, where, it's people can come and utilize it, whatever. Those things can still exist in our community. But for what the city wants to do with tax revenue is improve lives, right? So how do we get somebody that's literally unhoused, maybe living outside, maybe by the river, and get them into transitional housing? How do we get them from transitional housing into more permanent housing? How do we get somebody that is struggling with addiction? How do we get them services? How do we get somebody that is dealing with behavioral health issues? Maybe they're schizophrenic, bipolar, or something like that. How do we get them the services they need? How do we provide job training for those that want it? Like that's what we're talking about when we're talking about improving lives. So those are all very, very important. Separately, the comprehensive plan is a comprehensive document. It touches on a lot of things. Currently, the current rendition of it touches on things like complete streets, DEI, being carbon neutral by 2040. I think some pretty aspirational things like that. And I can't necessarily speak to it, but other than my hope for it is that we really kind of reflect what we've got done in the strategic plan, or we're doing in the strategic plan, to really say, how do we get back to basics, right? Yeah. How do we say, how do we really build this thriving community that works for Grand Junction, financially works for Grand Junction, and really reflects who we are. So that's what we're looking at as we go into this comprehensive plan, and it's just a matter of saying, like, this is important to how we build and grow, and who we are going forward. And it's time, and we revisit those about every 5 years, and the last one was in 2020.
So it's time.
It's time.
Yeah. So how long do you typically take for that revision process? Well, it kind of depends. Like, are we starting from scratch? Are we, throwing the baby out with the bathwater? Or are we going through and making revisions, right? Are we taking pieces and parts of it out? Are we hiring a consultant? Are we doing this ourselves, right? I think, to me, what I've seen in recent years is I have a feeling like we over-rely on consultants, right? We spend $130,000 on a Whitman Park plan that has an artificial ice skating rink and a dog park in it, right? That I don't think will ever happen, right? A $5 million plan. I just don't see that happening, right? So it's like, to have, like, I've kind of drafted a few just on my own, consultants policies, right? So how and when do we decide to hire a consultant? So in that case, I'm like, $130,000 to have some, like, could we not have just hit up CMU and asked for, for them to have a project for one of their, design classes to say, hey, this is an idea. Here's some elements that we'd like to incorporate. Bring them into the city. Bring them in and let's do something fun together. So it's just different ways of thinking about things. Is that the plan for Whitman Park at the moment? So I have different ideas about Whitman Park. I don't know how much I can share. I've spent a lot of time talking and thinking and working on that. And actually not just recently, but over the last year. I'm hopeful we have some good solutions ahead for that. But one of the things the feedback that we've gotten from the police department is it's a non-starter just to jerk down the fence and let it go back to what it was, right? Because it was, and I can attest to this because I was there, it was the most unsafe part of our community by far. Right? People have said, oh, well, there were parks with more police calls. Well, when we get the crayons out, I'll talk slow, I'll use small words. It was unsafe, right? And a lot of crime there went unreported, right? Because as you rolled in there, everybody's yelling 5-0 and whistling and whatever, but we would have some of the most serious calls there, right? These assaults that were, with a deadly weapon. I'm not going to get into the
but it was serious and it was a problem, and we don't want to see that again. So it's like, how do we manage that, right? And how do we, be compassionate towards, our unhoused that need a place to go? And I had a significant conversation today with another person that serves on the board of another nonprofit about that exact thing, about how do we solve that, and how do we provide some resources and provide that nonprofit with resources going forward that ensures their prosperity for decades ahead, right? How do we look and work that way, and rather than just create an environment where those bad things continue to happen, right?
So how has the skate park at Emerson Park gone? I mean, a lot of people feel like, one, it was a waste of city dollars. Two, it's just a place for people to hang out, that curse a lot, that do drugs and all of that. Has it been a positive thing for the city, or has it kind of been?
So I do want to call out, it was an $11 million spend, right? One important thing to consider is that we do get grant money, right? Quite a bit. The other thing is that people will often think about, oh, well, you spent all this money. It's literally has to be spent on parks. The money that we're spending, like this conversation about Whitman, right? When I talk about a $5 million park, maybe $2 million or $2.5 or $3 million is city dollars, and the rest is matching dollars that we get from other grants. But those are coming out of buckets that are designated for Parks and Rec. We can only use them for that. Now, should we be talking about the Orchard Mesa pool? Sure, let's have that conversation, right? But we can't take those dollars that were spent on Emerson Park and pay police officers. Right?
Yep.
Can't do it. Can't. Those streams don't cross, right? So that's an important consideration. But to answer your question about Emerson, there have been and there are concerns about parking and how do we utilize it. I've seen a lot of utilization of it.
Yeah, it seems busy.
It seems busy. I'm thrilled to have that, to have a place for young people to go to enjoy and hang out. I do want to be careful and not to critique or criticize you, but just to maybe make a little correction, right? When you think about the people that might use a park like that, like these are a lot of times young athletes that are really love what they do, right? Whether they're on a bike or a board, however they enjoy that. Like I'm glad that we have amenities for them. It was a big spend, but I think it was an opportunity to do something good and uplift that park. Yeah. One thing I also want to be careful of is as we use words like activate, like let's talk about like are we activating all the places that we don't want our unhoused neighbors to be, right? Just building a really fancy park in hopes that they don't go there. And I think that needs to be said out loud in the open to say, what is the plan for this? And what is our plan for, the unhoused, and how are we dealing with that? Rather than are we just spending a lot of money to make this a really fancy park to try to eliminate certain people from using it? So it really is, that's one of those government speak things that is worth, I think, calling out just out of abundance of transparency. Yeah. Well,
there's a lot of, it's easy for people to make judgment and to say things face value, and you don't know what actually went behind it or the reasoning.
Right. And to say that somebody of a totally different culture, let's say they, I was driving by Emerson yesterday, and I saw somebody, he had his shirt off, he had his, he's getting ready to go down one of the ramps. I saw him with the back, and his back was nothing but ink, right? Great. It's different culture than me, right? But who am I to judge, right? And do anything other than cheer him on. I'm glad he's out there enjoying the fresh air in a beautiful skate park in downtown Grand Junction. He's not sitting in front of a TV. He's not sitting or looking at a phone or doing anything else. So I think it's easy for us to sometimes judge people that are different than us when it's a matter of saying, this is a community we all got to live in together. Like, how do we come together and really give like different parts of our community opportunities to thrive? So I get the concern about the spend of an $11 million skate park with busy roads surrounding it. Right. But I also get like, how do we include different parts of our community and do good things for them and have some real standout features? Yeah. Well, Cody, I sure appreciate you sitting down with us. This has been a very great conversation. Thank you. We wish you the best of luck as mayor. Thank you. And we
need to attend one of your coffees with Cody, that
Please
would be very interesting to sit and hear.
Yeah, please do. Tuesdays and Thursday mornings, I'm at Mountain Air Roasters. If I'm out of town, or unavailable because I have another commitment. Sometimes I have other meetings. I'll post it on my Cody for GJ Facebook page.
Okay.
So say, hey, not happening today. So sometimes I get a couple of those going on where I'm just tied up or out of town. But I do try to make myself available, and certainly people can reach out to me otherwise. My email address is codyken, CODYKEN, at gjcity.org. So I'm pretty easy to communicate with.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thank you again. We sure appreciate having you.
Great. Thanks.